6 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Today I'm absolutely thrilled to have Virna de Palma, the now Senior Director of Global Strategy and Communications at Trace, visiting with us today. We're going to talk about several topics, but we're going to spend some time talking about an absolutely new program that Trace just announced, I think last week, but perhaps earlier, called the Trace Scholarship Program. But before I get to that, I want to welcome you and thank you very much for agreeing to come on to the podcast, Virna.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Could you tell our audience what Trace is and what your role, your new role in the company is?
Yes, absolutely. So Trace International is a leading nonprofit anti-bribery compliance organization. We leverage a shared cost model to provide multinational companies worldwide and their third-party intermediaries with the tools and resources to comply with anti-bribery compliance regulations. Trace members include hundreds of multinational companies and now thousands of SMEs worldwide. Trace International works in partnership with Trace Incorporated, which is a completely separate entity that offers both members and non-members customizable due diligence and advisory services.
As a compliance practitioner in the field, I have seen the Trace certification, and that's a great resource for someone like myself who's looking at a third party on behalf of a client. Could you tell the audience a little bit about what the Trace certification is and what you think it means?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that Trace is very excited about and is directly in support of our mission to really provide companies and also third parties with not only practical but very cost-effective anti-bribery compliance solutions. So, what we really recognize is that, as companies are under more pressure to comply with third-party due diligence requirements worldwide, they were really lacking the resources to do this. And at the same time, their third-party intermediaries were being inundated with repetitive requests to complete due diligence reviews. So it was essentially a losing situation for both parties. So we decided to flip that equation with what we're terming portable due diligence, and essentially what that means is that third parties will pay to complete the due diligence review, and it's a very robust and comprehensive review that takes about 4 weeks to complete and involves a requirement to complete an online anti-bribery training as well as adopt a code of conduct. And they pay for this report, and once they complete it successfully, they receive the report and they can then share it with all of their business partners worldwide. So it's a win-win for both parties in the sense that now the multinational corporation doesn't have to actually pay for the due diligence review, and the third party, while they do pay for it, it's a very reasonable cost, and now they gain a valuable compliance credential and essentially a competitive advantage by having the certification that they can go ahead and share with their business partners worldwide.
You talked about some of the services that are available to members of Trace, and I'm going to now have to talk about some of the things that are available to non-members like myself.
Sure.
The website is just a fabulous resource for any compliance practitioner. You have a wide variety of white papers, blog posts, and other written information that's available, free to download. And I would encourage anyone to go to the Trace website, check it out if you're in the compliance, anti-bribery, anti-corruption compliance field at all. It's a wonderful resource, and I would commend it to you. I would also commend, if you have the chance to hear someone from Trace speaking, run, don't walk to hear them talk, because they're going to say something that's important, and they're going to say something that's going to impact what you're doing as a compliance practitioner.
Well, we really appreciate that, and I think that one resource that I'll just highlight, because we just released it last week and it is indeed available to the public. It's actually right now featured on the homepage of our website, is our 2013 Global Enforcement Report, and essentially what this does is track all anti-bribery enforcement activity for 126 countries worldwide, both domestic and foreign anti-bribery actions. So I do encourage people to go to our website and download this free report.
I would agree with that, with only the added double-double on that. But what I really wanted to visit with you about was something that I think you and Trace, and certainly Alexandra, were very excited to announce, and I think the compliance community was equally excited to receive the news of your announcement about the Trace Scholarship Program. So could you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are really excited about this program, and you're correct. We just announced it last week. And essentially, this program was developed directly in line and in support of our wider mission to advance commercial transparency worldwide by developing visible leaders in this field. So what it does is it fully funds two LLM students with tuition and travel and housing costs to attend either the University of Washington School of Law or the University of Maryland Francis Carey School of Law. And then this is one academic year followed by a summer internship at Trace. So we are highly encouraging LLM students in developing countries to apply for this program. The application deadline is actually April 20th, so just around the corner. They do have, they're of particular interest because we feel that, number one, they could really add to the LLM program by bringing a new perspective, and also they have the ability to have a greater impact when they return to their home country.
Okay, if I could break down some of the things you said there. First
Sure.
of all, this is an LLM. I think I understand what that means, but could you explain to the audience that an LLM is really a graduate degree, so you have to have a certain level of education to apply? Can you explain that?
Right. So it's actually for professionals who have already who already have a law degree and who want to further their education, or someone who is in the process of completing a law degree in their home country. And we selected these two universities because we feel that their LLM programs have a strong emphasis on anti-corruption issues and offer the relevant courses that one would need to complete to become an expert in this field.
If someone wanted to take a look at what the requirements are rather, and what other information might be available, is there a resource they could go to on the Trace website?
Yes, absolutely. So on our website, we have a tab for the Trace Scholar Program. And in fact, Trace isn't directly involved in the application process. The student has to go directly to the university. So on our website, there's also links to the applications and the requirements, which are actually listed on the university websites.
You mentioned one other thing that greatly intrigued me, that one of the reasons we partnered with these specific universities were that they had compliance-related courses that the student could take in addition to probably other legal courses. I have really thought about, talked about, and written about education to train our next generation of compliance leaders.
Right.
Do you know anything about the specifics of the compliance-related coursework that they would be able to engage in?
Right. Well, we found, after doing quite a bit of research with universities, and and by the way, again, this is exactly why we're developing this program, as you just mentioned, to really be developing new leaders in this field. And we found that they just had, the most variety of courses that would relate to this practice area. But, that said, if the program is successful this year, we will look to expand to partner with other universities. We've already had several universities, both in the United States and abroad, that have expressed an interest in joining the program and that have come forward to us, showcasing the courses that they're offering that relate to this field. So I really do think in the last 2 years or so, these courses have become more available at a number of universities.
You didn't quite say it directly, perhaps I inferred too much, but one of the things that's always intrigued me about your organization is that you're a nonprofit. And
Right.
or because of that, you're viewed as differently. And I can't exactly put my finger on what it is differently, but one of the differences seem to be you're in communication with everybody. And you just mentioned other universities, international universities, universities from outside the United States have contacted you. And it seems to me, as an outsider sitting in, one of the real, I guess, advantages you guys have is you're perceived to be neutral, and everybody wants to talk to you and work with you. Is that a fair observation?
I do think that's a fair observation, and Trace International was founded in 2001 by Alexandra Rogge, who truly believed in the mission to advance commercial transparency, and built this company from from the ground up. And we are constantly in contact with all stakeholders, and of course we have our members who bring great value to what we do and allow us to consistently benchmark international best practices. So I do think that gives us an advantage and a unique perspective. And we are involved with the UN Global Compact and the International Center for Collective Action in Basel. So we're involved in a number of projects, and being a nonprofit gives us the ability to do that. Now that said, I do always like to clarify that we do have a completely separate entity that was established in 2007 that provides just due diligence and advisory services. And we did that because we found that our members were frequently demanding more due diligence services that simply did not fall within a shared cost model. So we decided to sort of spin this off and have this separate entity. But they work very closely together to really offer one complete anti-bribery and third-party compliance solution that still upholds our core values of offering cost-effective solutions.
Right. One of the other things that has intrigued me about Trace is really the wide variety of not only individuals and talents but backgrounds that have come together to work there. And I have to say, perhaps you're one of those as well.
Right.
Looking at your bio, looked like you were born in Uruguay, came to the United States, university in the United States, and then supplemental college in the United Kingdom. Can you kind of tell us about your background and that experience?
Sure. So my family emigrated from Uruguay to the United States when I was very young, and a very sort of typical success story of two people who wanted to come to the United States to provide their children with more opportunities, and so that we could pursue advanced studies. And so they did that successfully, and I was raised in New York and then completed my undergraduate education at Northeastern University in Boston in political science and international relations, and then went on to pursue studies, I don't think this is in my bio, but in Madrid on diplomatic law and consular relations. And then from there went on to complete my master's in international peace and security at King's College London, which fell under both the War Studies Department and the International Law Department. And at the time I was sort of on the fence, whether I wanted to pursue a law degree and be a lawyer, or if I wanted to go sort of into the nonprofit sector. So that led me to a position at a progressive think tank in London called Demos, where I was focusing on counterterrorism initiatives. At the time, it was directly following the terrorist attacks in London in July of 2005. And then from there, decided to move back to New York and immerse myself more in private sector issues, which led me to American Conference Institute to develop their international anti-bribery compliance portfolio. It was sort of good timing on my part. They had been doing FCPA work in the United States, but they hadn't really expanded internationally, so I took that on and developed anti-bribery programs in Brazil, Russia, the Middle East, India. So it was a great time. I got to do research and travel to all of those places, and was in touch with Trace.
And then one of the things I wanted to focus on, because it's in your biography, and I might have to read the title.
Sure, it's a long time.
Yeah, it's called Bringing It Home, Community-Based Approaches to Counterterrorism. And just from the title, it greatly intrigued me about the subject matter, but also I would opine that there may be principles you developed or uncovered that could be used in the anti-bribery world. So if you could just maybe describe that article, but then see if my question is even valid, could some of those principles transition over?
Sure, absolutely. So the research and this article, again, this was directly after the terrorist attacks in London of July 2005. And of course, that those attacks were perpetrated by 4 individuals who were British citizens. So the government funded this project where essentially we were exploring different community-based approaches to countering extremism. And the report essentially argues that communities have to be at the center of any counterterrorism efforts, and essentially for 4 reasons. So the first is that communities are a great and very important source of information and intelligence. Number two, that they have the ability to pick up early warning signs and detect behavior that could lead to extremism and terrorism. Number three, that while states have an important role to play in this, of course, that communities must be able to lead the efforts of counterterrorism and identify problems that could create more grievances. And finally, that police and security services cannot really effectively function without the support of the communities that they protect. So while I think that actually all of those 4 points in one way or another apply to the anti-bribery movement, I think particularly the first 2 points are of interest, especially if you think about, community really meaning the business community and civil society. And of course, governments have been leaning more on the private sector to, develop very robust anti-bribery compliance programs and training programs, and putting a great weight on them to really take the lead in the anti-bribery movement. Quite frankly, I do think that that is the most effective approach, and that is why I moved into doing more private sector work, because I realized that, essentially you can drive change more quickly by working with the private sector, and in this analogy, it would be by working with the communities. So that's what we've been seeing in the last, 5 years, or we could say the last decade, where companies are really working from within to detect corrupt behavior, to implement these very robust anti-bribery and training programs, and to continue to advance the anti-bribery agenda by working collectively together as well.
That sounds a whole lot like someone asked me why I work for energy companies, and I said because I get to move the ball forward even if it's a half a turn a day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So actually, I found all four of your points valid for corporations. So very interesting analysis. Well, Verna, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us. If someone wanted to contact you at Trace, could they email you or contact you that way?
Yes, they could email me at dipalma@traceinternational.org. That's DIPALMA. Or they could contact me by phone at 646-673-6340.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to visit with me, and I hope everyone has enjoyed it. This is Tom Fox, and we look forward to visiting with